Captain Jake Morrison stared at the strange readings on his ship's scanner and rubbed his tired eyes. 3 months of routine patrol duty in the Outer Rim had left him bored and restless. His small exploration vessel, the Dawnrunner, was built for long journeys, but not for excitement. The scanner showed something massive floating dead ahead in the asteroid field. Jake leaned forward and squinted at the display. The object was huge and clearly artificial, but unlike any ship design he had seen before. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an odd blue-green color that shifted and moved like liquid metal. Strange spires and curved sections jutted out at impossible angles. Whatever species built this thing had technology far beyond human understanding. "Computer, scan for life signs," Jake said aloud to break the silence that had been his only companion. For weeks, the ship's AI responded in its flat mechanical voice. "Scanning complete. Detecting multiple biological signatures aboard the vessel. Warning, several signatures show critical life signs. Immediate medical attention recommended." Jake felt his pulse quicken. First contact protocols demanded he report the discovery to Earth Command and wait for a full diplomatic team, but people were dying on that ship right now. By the time help arrived, it could be too late. He had sworn an oath to protect all life when he became a captain. That oath didn't specify human life only. "Set course for the alien vessel," Jake ordered. "Prepare docking procedures." The Dawnrunner moved slowly through the asteroid field toward the mysterious ship. As they got closer, Jake could see massive holes torn in the hull. Whatever had happened here was violent. Debris floated around the ship like a metal graveyard. Some pieces looked like they might have been weapons or defense systems. Jake suited up and checked his equipment twice. His universal translator was the latest model, but had never been tested on unknown alien languages. His medical kit contained basic supplies that worked on most carbon-based life forms. His sidearm stayed in its holster. If these beings were hostile, he was already dead anyway. The airlock sealed behind him as Jake stepped onto the alien ship. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows down the curved corridors. The walls seemed to pulse with faint light that reminded him of deep-sea creatures. Everything was sized for beings taller than humans, but not by much. That was reassuring in a strange way. Bodies lay scattered throughout the first section Jake explored. The aliens were beautiful in a way that made his breath catch. And their skin was translucent and seemed to contain tiny stars that flickered and dimmed. Delicate features and elongated limbs gave them an almost angelic appearance, but they were definitely dead. Whatever had killed them had been quick and efficient. Jake followed his scanner deeper into the ship toward the strongest life sign. The corridors grew wider and more elaborate as he moved toward what seemed to be the center. Artwork covered the walls, showing scenes of vast cities floating in space and beings of light dancing among the stars. This was clearly an advanced civilization, with a rich culture. The central chamber took Jake's breath away. The ceiling stretched up several stories and was covered with a map of the galaxy that moved and shifted like a living thing. Thousands of points of light showed star systems connected by flowing lines of energy. In the center of it all stood a raised platform with what looked like a throne. On the floor beside the throne lay a single alien figure. Unlike the others, this one was still alive, but barely. Her skin still flickered with those strange lights, though they were growing dim. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Even dying, she was the most beautiful being Jake had ever seen. The moment she saw him, she tried to sit up and reach toward him with desperate movements. Strange musical sounds came from her throat that the translator couldn't parse yet. Jake knelt beside her and gently supported her as she struggled to speak. "Please," the translator finally managed to convert her words. "Don't let them find me. They think I'm dead. It has to stay that way." Tears that looked like liquid diamonds ran down her face as she clung to Jake's arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone so badly injured. The desperation in her voice cut through any language barrier. This was someone who had lost everything and was begging for help from a complete stranger. Jake looked into her large eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. "I'll help you," he said softly. "Can you walk?" She shook her head weakly. Too weak, too hurt. But you must not let them know. If they learn I live, they will hunt me across the galaxy. Billions will die. The words sent a chill down Jake's spine. Whatever this woman was running from was bigger than a simple family dispute or political disagreement. She was talking about the fate of entire worlds. Jake had stumbled into something that could affect the balance of power across known space. "My name is Jake," he said as he carefully lifted her in his arms. She weighed almost nothing despite being nearly as tall as him. "I'm going to take you to my ship and patch you up. Then you can tell me what's really going on here." She looked up at him with an expression of wonder mixed with gratitude. "Jake," she repeated slowly like she was testing how the name felt. "I am Lyra, Princess Lyra of the Empire, and I fear I have brought you into a war that will decide the fate of this galaxy." Jake carried the alien princess through the corridors of her dead ship back toward his vessel. With each step, he could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 3 months ago, his biggest worry was running out of decent coffee. Now he was harboring what seemed to be galactic royalty fleeing from enemies powerful enough to destroy her entire escort dot as the airlock sealed behind them. Jake looked back at the drifting alien ship one last time. Something told him his quiet life as an exploration captain was over. Princess Lyra had clung to him in desperation, and he had promised to help. That promise was going to change everything. The Dawnrunner pulled away from the wreckage and set course for empty space while Jake began the careful work of keeping an alien princess alive. In the medical bay, Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness as he treated her injuries. Each time she woke, she looked at him with those deep eyes and whispered the same words. "Thank you for not leaving me to die alone." 3 days passed before Princess Lyra was strong enough to sit up and speak for more than a few minutes at a time. Jake had moved her to his quarters since the medical bay was too cramped for extended recovery. She spent most of her time staring out the viewport at the stars with an expression of deep sadness. Her wounds were healing faster than Jake had expected. The strange lights under her skin grew brighter each day, and she could move around the small cabin without help. But the fear never left her eyes. Every time the ship's sensors detected anything, she would tense up and ask if they were being followed. "Tell me about your empire," Jake said one morning as he brought her breakfast. He had replicated something that looked like the food packets from her ship. The taste was probably wrong, but it was nutritionally compatible with her biology. Lyra accepted the meal with a grateful nod. "The Altian Empire spans 300 systems across this arm of the galaxy. We have ruled for over 10,000 years. My people believe we were chosen by the stars themselves to bring order to the chaos of space." Jake sat down across from her. "That's a lot of responsibility. What happened to your ship?" Pain flickered across her features. "My brother Vex arranged for my assassination. He used ships from the outer territories to make it look like a pirate attack. Everyone aboard died protecting me except for my personal guard captain. She held them off long enough for me to reach the emergency pod, but she didn't make it." "Why would your own brother want to kill you?" Jake asked gently. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "The succession laws of our people are ancient and absolute. Only one heir can claim the throne, and they must do so by their 25th birthday. That day comes for me in 2 months. If I die before then, the crown passes to the next in line." "So this is about power," Jake said. It made sense from a human perspective. Royal families had been murdering each other for thrones throughout Earth's history. Not just power, Lyra shook her head. Something else, something far more important. She stood and walked to the viewport. "Jake, what do you know about genetic memory?" The question surprised him. Some species can pass down instinctive knowledge through their genes. Earth animals do it for migration routes and survival behaviors. Why? My people are connected to every system in our empire through something we call the Heart of Auda. It is an ancient artifact left by our ancestors that links all Altian technology across space. Every power grid, every defense system, every life support network on 300 worlds depends on it. Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. And this heart thing is connected to your royal family somehow. The genetic codes of the royal bloodline are the activation keys, Lyra said quietly. The heart reads our DNA patterns and responds to our commands. It was designed to ensure only those of pure Altium blood could control the Empire's most vital systems. What happens if there's no royal heir? Lyra turned from the viewport with tears in her eyes. The heart goes dormant. Every system it controls begins to fail. Life support systems on mining worlds, atmospheric processors on terraformed planets, defense networks protecting civilian populations. Billions of people will die within months if the heart isn't properly transferred to a new ruler. The full scope of what Jake had stumbled into hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't just about one woman fleeing from family problems. The fate of hundreds of worlds hung in the balance. So you have to claim the throne to save all those people. That's what everyone believes, Lyra said bitterly. But there's something they don't know. Something I discovered in the royal archives just before I fled. The heart doesn't require the death of the previous ruler to transfer power. The succession laws were created by my ancestors to maintain absolute control, not because the technology demands it. Jake stared at her. You mean you could share power with your brother? Rule together? I tried to tell him that, Lyra said. I sent him a message explaining what I had learned. I thought he would be relieved to know we could both live and work together to guide our people into a new age of cooperation instead of fear, but he still tried to have you killed. Lyra nodded. 3 days later the attack came. I barely escaped with my life. Whatever Vex wants, it isn't just the throne. He wants me dead for reasons I don't understand. Jake leaned back in his chair and tried to process everything she had told him. A galactic empire that spanned hundreds of worlds, billions of lives hanging in the balance. Ancient technology that could be controlled only by genetic codes. And somehow a small-town human captain was right in the middle of it all. Why did you trust me? He asked suddenly. When you saw me on your ship, you reached out immediately. You'd never seen a human before. For all you knew, I was there to finish. What the assassins started? Lyra looked at him with those deep eyes that seemed to hold starlight. My people have an ability you might call empathic sensing. We can feel the life force of other beings. Most species project patterns of self-preservation and tribal loyalty. We sense beings who will protect their own kind but view outsiders as threats or resources to be used. And humans are different? When I felt your life pattern, it was unlike anything I had ever encountered, she said softly. Your species burns with something we had never seen before. A need to protect those who cannot protect themselves, even when they are strangers from completely different worlds. The moment I sensed that in you, I knew you would not harm me. Jake felt uncomfortable with her words. He didn't think of himself as particularly heroic. I just couldn't leave someone to die when I could help. That is exactly what I mean, Lyra smiled for the first time since he had found her. Most beings would have followed their protocols and called for backup while I died. You risk everything to save someone you had never met. That kind of selfless courage is what my people call the guardian spirit. We have legends about such beings, but we thought they were myths. The ship's proximity alarm suddenly activated, filling the cabin with red warning lights. Jake jumped to his feet and moved to the control panel. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace nearby, and they were scanning the area with military-grade sensors. Vex's hunters, Lyra whispered. Her face went pale, and the lights under her skin flickered with fear. They found us! Jake watched. The sensor display as the alien ships began moving in their direction. They were sleek and deadly-looking vessels that could probably destroy the Dawnrunner without breaking stride. Can they detect you on my ship? Not directly, but they will board and search every vessel in this sector, Lyra said. If they find me here, they will kill you as an accomplice. You have to abandon me, Jake. Take me to the nearest space station and leave me there. I won't let you die for my sake. Jake looked at the alien ships closing in on their position, then back at Lyra. The princess, who had clung to him in desperation, was now willing to sacrifice herself to protect him. She was everything her brother was not. The galaxy would be, Darker place if someone like her died while someone like Vex lived to rule. Not happening, Princess, Jake said as he moved to the pilot's controls. Hold on tight. We're about to find out how good these hunters really are. The Dawn Runner leaped forward into the asteroid field at maximum speed while the alien ships gave chase. Jake had been flying through these rocks for 3 months and knew every drift pattern and hiding spot. If he could just reach the dense cluster near the system's edge, they might have a chance. Behind them, the hunters fired warning shots that lit up space with deadly energy. Princess Lyra gripped the back of Jake's chair as the ship shook from near misses. The chase that would decide the fate of billions had begun. Jake threw the Dawn Runner into a sharp dive between 2 massive asteroids as energy beams scorched the space where they had been seconds before. The pursuing Ultian ships were faster and more heavily armed, but they weren't used to flying through dense asteroid fields. Every near miss with floating rocks made them slow down while Jake pushed his ship to its limits. They're herding us toward the system edge, Lyra said from where she gripped the co-pilot seat. Once we reach open space, they'll destroy us easily. Jake glanced at his fuel readings and cursed under his breath. Running the engines at maximum power was burning through their reserves faster than expected. They had maybe 6 hours before they would be stranded. Do you know anything about their tactics? How they hunt? Vex uses systematic search patterns, Lyra replied. They will have more ships waiting at every exit point from this system. We cannot outrun them forever. Then we don't run, Jake said as he pulled the ship into a tight spiral around a tumbling chunk of metal. We hide. For the next 4 hours, Jake led the hunters on a deadly game of cat and mouse through the asteroid field. He used every trick he had learned in his years as a pilot, hiding in the sensor shadows of large rocks, cutting power to drift silently while search beams passed overhead, using the natural radiation from metal deposits to mask their heat signature. The Altian ships were methodical and patient. When they lost track of the Dawn Runner, they would spread out in search formations and scan every possible hiding spot. Their technology was advanced enough to eventually find any hiding place Jake could think of, but it bought them time to think. I need to understand more about your brother, Jake said during one of their quiet moments drifting behind a small moon. What changed him? Why does he want you dead so badly? Lyra stared out at the searching ships in the distance. Vex was always the better heir, stronger, smarter, more decisive than me. Our father favored him and everyone expected he would inherit the throne, but our laws are absolute. The firstborn child rules regardless of their abilities. That must have been hard for him. I thought so too, she said quietly. When we were children, I used to tell him that I would give up my claim when the time came. Let him be the ruler he was born to be while I pursued my studies of ancient history. But something changed in him after our father died. Jake adjusted their position as one of the search ships passed uncomfortably close. What kind of change? He became obsessed with the old ways, the absolute authority of the Emperor. He began talking about expanding the Empire and bringing order to the wild systems beyond our borders. He said the Ultian people had grown soft and needed strong leadership to reclaim their destiny among the stars. Sounds like he wants to start a war. Not just one war, Lyra said with growing fear in her voice. He showed me plans for conquest campaigns that would span decades. Hundreds of systems would be brought under Altian control by force. Billions of beings from dozens of species would become subjects of the Empire whether they wanted to or not. Jake felt sick as he realized the scope of Vex's ambitions. And you were going to stand in his way. I told him I would never authorize such campaigns. That if I became Empress, I would work toward peaceful cooperation with other species instead of domination. The heart of Auda would be used to help struggling worlds, not conquer them, so he decided to remove the obstacle. Lyra nodded. But Jake, there's something else. Something I discovered in those same archives that revealed the truth about the succession laws. Our ancestors didn't just build the heart to control Altian technology. They built it as a weapon. The word sent a chill down Jake's spine. What kind of weapon? The heart can overload any system it's connected to. Instead of providing power, it can surge energy through networks and destroy them completely. Every world in our empire could have its life support systems turned into bombs with a single command from the ruler. Jake stared at her in horror. Your brother wants to use that as a threat. Submit to the Empire, or we'll kill everyone on your planet. Worse, Lyra whispered. I think he plans to actually use it. Show the galaxy what happens to species that resist Altian rule by destroying entire worlds as examples. Rule through terror instead of respect. The magnitude of what Jake was dealing with hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't just about saving one woman or even preventing a war. If Prince Vex gained control of the heart of Auda, he would become the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Billions of innocent lives would be at his mercy. We have to stop him, Jake said firmly. How? Lyra asked with despair in her voice. Even if we could somehow reach the heart before my birthday, I'm just one person against the entire Imperial fleet. Vex has spent years placing loyal supporters in key positions. By now he controls most of the military. Jake was about to answer, when proximity alarms screamed throughout the ship. 3 hunter vessels had found their hiding spot and were closing in fast. Energy beams lanced through space as Jake threw the Dawn Runner into evasive maneuvers. Hold on, he shouted as the ship shook from a direct hit to the rear shields. We're going to try something stupid. Instead of running deeper into the asteroid field, Jake turned directly toward the largest chunk of rock nearby. It was an old mining station that had been abandoned years ago when the deposits ran dry. As they approached, Jake could see the docking. The bays were still intact. You're going to hide inside? Lyra asked. Better, Jake said through gritted teeth as he lined up their approach. I'm going to make them think we crashed. The Dawn Runner disappeared into the mining station's main bay just as the hunter ships rounded the asteroid. Jake immediately cut all power except life support and emergency systems. On the hunter's sensors, it would look like the human ship had slammed into the rock and been destroyed. They waited in tense silence as the Altian vessels scanned the area. The lead ship moved close enough that Jake could see individual hull markings through the viewport. After what felt like hours, the hunters finally moved away to search other areas. Brilliant, Lyra breathed. They think we're dead. For now, Jake replied, but this only buys us time. We need a real plan. Lyra was quiet for several minutes before she spoke again. There might be a way. The human colonial fleet has a reputation for helping refugees. If we could reach one of your military ships, they might provide protection while we figure out how to stop Vex. Jake thought about the colonial fleet command structure. The nearest human base is 3 days away, even at maximum speed. Can you hold off claiming the throne that long? I have no choice, she said. But Jake, once we involve your people in this, you'll be putting all of humanity at risk. If Vex sees humans as a threat to his plans, he could use the heart to destroy Earth itself. Jake looked at this brave alien woman who was willing to sacrifice herself to protect people she had never met. She had lost everything and was facing an enemy with the power to destroy worlds, but she was still worried about what might happen to his species. Princess, he said gently, you told me that humans have something called the guardian spirit, that we protect those who can't protect themselves even when they're strangers. If that's true, then this is exactly the kind of fight my people were born for. Lyra looked at him with wonder in her eyes. You really would risk your entire species to save mine. Not just yours, Jake said as he began powering up the ship's systems. Every species in the galaxy. Because if your brother gets his hands on that weapon, nowhere will be safe. As the Dawn Runner slipped quietly out of the mining station and set course for human space, Jake knew their real journey was just beginning. Behind them, Prince Vex's hunters continued their search, unaware that their prey was already racing toward reinforcements that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The human trading station New Haven appeared on their view screen after 2 days of hard travel. Jake felt relief wash over him when he saw the familiar angular lines of human construction. The station was busy with merchant traffic from a dozen different species, which would make it easier to blend in while they made contact with the colonial fleet. "It's beautiful," Lyra said as she watched the bustling activity around the station. So many different ships working together peacefully. This is what I dreamed the galaxy could become. Jake smiled at her wonder. "Wait until you see the markets inside. We've got traders from species I can't even pronounce selling everything, from Andromedan silk to Centauri crystal sculptures." He had contacted Captain Elena Rodriguez of the human cruiser Defiance while they traveled. Elena was an old friend from his military days and someone he trusted completely. Her ship was docked at New Haven for repairs after a patrol mission in the outer systems. As they approached the docking bay, Jake felt his stomach tighten with worry. 3 massive ships were moving into position around the station. The sleek, deadly lines and blue-green hulls marked them clearly as Altian vessels. Somehow Prince Vex had found them. "They're not attacking," Lyra observed as she studied the alien ships. "They're surrounding the station but keeping their weapons powered." Down. Jake's communications panel lit up with an incoming message. The face that appeared on screen was clearly Altian but male and harder than Lyra's delicate features. This had to be Prince Vex himself. When he spoke, the universal translator converted his words into cold, precise English. "Attention, human vessel. You are harboring a fugitive from Altian justice. Surrender Princess Lyra immediately, and you will be allowed to depart unharmed. Refuse and this entire station will be destroyed along with everyone aboard." The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at the blank screen. Around them he could see other ships trying to leave the station only to be turned back by Altian patrol craft. Thousands of innocent beings were trapped here because of their presence. "I have to surrender," Lyra said quietly. "I won't let these people die for my sake." "No way," Jake replied firmly. "That's exactly what he wants. Once he has you, there's nothing stopping him from destroying the station anyway." Jake opened a channel to Captain Rodriguez on the Defiance. Elena's weathered face appeared on screen with her usual no-nonsense expression. She had been fighting pirates and smugglers on the Rim for 15 years and nothing much surprised her. "Anymore. Jake, what the hell have you gotten yourself into this time?" she asked without preamble. "Elena, I need you to get Princess Lyra off this station and to safety while I deal with her brother." "Deal with him how?" Elena's eyes narrowed. "Those are military-grade warships out there. They could turn this whole station into scrap metal in about 30 seconds. Jake took a deep breath. "I'm going to give myself up as a prize. The human who dared interfere with Altian politics. It should buy you enough time to get the princess to Earth Command where they can figure out how to handle this situation properly." Both women immediately started protesting, but Jake cut them off. "This is the only play we have? Vex wants his sister, but he also wants to make an example of anyone who helped her. A human prisoner would be valuable to him for propaganda purposes." "Jake, no," Lyra reached for his arm. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. Not after everything you've done." "Princess," Jake said gently, "you told me that humans have the guardian spirit, that we protect those who can't protect themselves. Well, right now there are thousands of innocent people on this station who can't protect themselves from your brother. And there are billions more across the galaxy who will need your protection if you can find a way to stop him." Lyra stared at him with tears forming in her eyes. "There has to be another way." "Maybe there is," Jake said. "But we won't find it if you're dead or if everyone on this station gets killed. Elena will keep you safe while I buy you time to figure out how to stop Vex without starting a war that could destroy half the galaxy." Elena Rodriguez had been listening to the exchange with a grim expression. "Jake, you're asking me to watch a friend walk into what's probably certain death. I'm asking you to save a princess who might be the only thing standing between us and the worst tyrant the galaxy has ever seen." Jake replied. "Can the Defiance handle getting her to safety?" Elena was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "We can run silent through the asteroid fields and make it to the jump point before those Altian ships know we're gone." "But Jake, what's to stop this Vex character from just blowing up the station after he has you?" "Because he needs to question." "Me first," Jake said with more confidence than he felt. He'll want to know where Lyra is and who else might have helped her. That interrogation will take time and give you a head start. Jake began preparing for transfer to the Altian ships. He packed a small bag with personal items and made sure his ship's computer would cooperate with Elena when she took command. All the while, Lyra watched him with an expression of heartbreak and admiration. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why are you doing this for someone you barely know?" Jake paused in his packing. 3 days ago, if someone had told me I'd be surrendering myself to alien royalty to save a space station full of strangers, I'd have laughed at them. But you were right about humans having something different. We can't stand to watch. Innocent people suffer when we could do something to stop it. Even if it costs your life? Especially then, Jake said quietly. Because what's the point of living if you're not willing to die for something important? And stopping your brother from turning the galaxy into his personal empire seems pretty important to me. The transfer happened quickly. Jake took a shuttle to the lead Altian ship while Elena moved Lyra aboard the Defiance through a maintenance tunnel that connected the two vessels. As Jake's shuttle disappeared into the alien warship, he saw Elena's cruiser beginning to drift away from the station as if conducting routine engine tests. Prince Vex met Jake personally in the shuttle bay. He was taller than his sister and had the same translucent skin, but his was darker and the lights beneath flickered with angry red patterns. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of absolute power. "So you are the human who thought he could interfere with Altian affairs. You will tell me where my sister has gone and who else helped her escape." Jake looked the alien prince in the eyes and smiled. "Your Highness, I'm just a simple exploration captain. I don't know anything about galactic politics." Vex's expression darkened. "Take him to the interrogation chambers. We will see how long his ignorance lasts under proper questioning." As Altian guards escorted Jake deeper into the ship, he caught a glimpse through a viewport of the Defiance accelerating away from the station. Elena had made it past the blockade and was heading for the jump point with Princess Leo safely aboard. Whatever happened to him now, they had bought the galaxy's best hope for peace. A chance to find another way. The cell they put him in was small but comfortable. Through the single window, Jake could see the trading station in the distance, surrounded by Altian warships. As long as Prince Vex needed information from him, those ships wouldn't fire. Thousands of innocent lives were safe for now, Jake settled onto the narrow bunk and tried not to think about what Altian interrogation techniques might involve. He had done his job. Now it was up to Princess Lyra and the human colonial fleet to find a way to stop her brother before his 25th birthday deadline gave him control of the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. Outside his window, the stars wheeled slowly past as the Altian fleet began its journey deeper into space. Jake Morrison, simple exploration captain, was now a prisoner in an alien war that would decide the fate of billions. But he had kept his promise to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Whatever came next, he could face it knowing he had chosen to stand with the light against the darkness. The interrogation chamber aboard Prince Vex's flagship was designed to break the will of prisoners through psychological pressure rather than physical torture. Jake had been strapped to a chair that read his vital signs while holographic projections showed him images meant to frighten and disorient him. For 3 days he had told them nothing useful. "You are remarkably stubborn for such a primitive species," Vex said as he entered the chamber. The Altian prince looked tired and frustrated. His skin flickered with patterns of angry red light. "Perhaps we should try a more direct approach." Jake lifted his head to meet the alien's gaze. The past days had taken their toll, but his resolve remained strong. "Still just a simple exploration captain, Your Highness. Still don't know anything about galactic politics." Vex moved closer, and Jake could see something was wrong. The prince's movements were sluggish, and his breathing seemed labored. When he spoke again, his voice lacked its earlier commanding tone. "You know where my sister has gone? You know which humans are helping her. Tell me, and I will make your death quick instead of allowing you to waste away like the rest of us." The words sent a shock through Jake. "Waste away? What are you talking about?" For a moment, Vex's composure cracked, and Jake saw something unexpected in his eyes. Fear, raw, desperate fear mixed with grief. Look around you, human. Look at my crew. Look at me. We are all dying, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. Jake looked more carefully at the Altian guards stationed around the chamber. Now that Vex had pointed it out, he could see the signs. Their skin was paler than Lyra's had been. The lights beneath flickered weakly or had gone out completely. Several moved with obvious effort, as if fighting exhaustion. "What's killing you?" Jake asked quietly. Vex laughed bitterly. "Our own genetics. A plague that affects only pure-blooded Altians. It started in the outer colonies 3 years ago and has been spreading through our empire ever since. The royal bloodline seems to be the most vulnerable. I have perhaps weeks left before the sickness takes me." Jake felt the pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. There never was a succession war, was there? You staged your sister's assassination attempt? "I had to make it look real," Vex said as he sank into a chair across from Jake. "Lyra would never have agreed to sacrifice herself willingly. She's too idealistic, too convinced that there must be another way to save our people." Jake stared at the dying alien prince. "Save your people how? What does Lyra's death have to do with stopping this plague?" "The heart of Auda isn't just a control system for our empire's technology," Vex said wearily. "It's a genetic repository. The complete DNA patterns of our ancestors from before the plague existed. But it can only be activated by a living member of the royal bloodline. So activate it yourself." "I tried," Vex's voice broke with emotion. "The heart requires pure genetic material untainted by the plague. My DNA is already corrupted. Only Lyra has the clean bloodline needed to unlock our salvation." Jake felt sick as the truth became clear. "And the activation process kills the person who does it," Vex nodded. "The heart drains the life force from the royal heir to power the genetic restoration process. Our entire species could be saved, but it requires my sister's death. She discovered this truth in the archives and refused to sacrifice herself for an empire she believes has committed too many crimes. So you decided to force her hand by making her think you wanted the throne for a conquest. If she believed I was planning to use the heart as a weapon to destroy other worlds, she would have no choice but to claim it first to stop me," Vex said. "I thought if she truly believed billions would die, she would make the sacrifice willingly." Jake shook his head in amazement. "Instead, she ran away and found me." "Your interference has doomed my entire species," Vex said with returning anger. "Every day she delays, thousands more of my people die from this plague. Entire worlds are becoming graveyards. There has to be another way," Jake said firmly. "Something that doesn't require killing an innocent woman. There is no other way." Vex slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. "Do you think I want my sister to die? She is the only family I have left. But sometimes a ruler must make terrible choices to save their people." Jake was quiet for several minutes as he processed everything he had learned. Finally, he looked up at the dying alien prince. "What if you're wrong? What if there is another way, but you're too scared and desperate to see it?" "Explain." "Lyra told me that your people believed the succession laws required the death of the previous ruler, but she found evidence that wasn't true. What if the heart's activation requirements aren't as absolute as you think either?" Vex shook his head. "I have studied every record. The activation ritual has never been attempted without the death of the genetic donor. Because nobody ever tried a different approach," Jake said with growing excitement. "Human scientists have been working with alien genetics for decades. We might be able to find a way to extract what the heart needs without killing Lyra. Even if that were possible, my sister is beyond reach now. Your colonial fleet will hide." "Where I could never find her," Jake smiled. "Maybe she doesn't need to hide anymore. Maybe it's time for the three of us to work together instead of against each other." At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. A communications officer rushed into the chamber with panic in his movements. "Your Highness, a human warship has just dropped out of hyperspace directly ahead of us. They are requesting Permission to come aboard. The Defiance, Jake said with satisfaction. I told you Elena Rodriguez was good at her job. Vex looked between Jake and the communications officer with confusion. Why would they return? They have what they wanted. Because Princess Lyra figured out the same thing I just did, Jake replied. She realized you weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. You were trying to save your people the only way you knew how. And she's coming back to find a better solution. An hour later, Princess Lyra entered the interrogation chamber flanked by Captain Rodriguez and 2 human marines. She looked at her brother with eyes full of compassion and sadness. Vex, why didn't you just tell me the truth? Because you would have refused, he said quietly. You would have condemned our entire species to death rather than sacrifice yourself. You're right, Lyra said as she knelt beside his chair. I would have refused to die. But I never would have refused to help save our people if you had given me the chance. She turned to Jake. Captain Rodriguez tells me you think human science might be able to help us find another way. Jake nodded. We've learned a lot about genetic manipulation and energy transfer systems. If we could study the heart of Auda and understand exactly how it works, we might be able to modify the activation process. And if you can't? Vex asked. Lyra took her brother's hand. Then I'll make the sacrifice willingly. But first we try Jake's way. We work together as a family. Should. Prince Vex looked at his sister, then at Jake, and finally at Captain Rodriguez. You would really help us? Even after everything I've done? That's what humans do, Rodriguez said gruffly. We help people in trouble even when they've been acting like complete idiots. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in the heart chamber deep within the Altian homeworld watching history being made. Human scientists working alongside Altian engineers had found a way to extract genetic material from Princess Lyra without killing her. The process was dangerous and exhausting, but she had survived. The heart of Auda blazed with new energy as it began broadcasting the restored genetic codes to every world in the Empire. The plague that had threatened to destroy an entire species started to retreat as Altian immune systems remembered how to fight it. It's working, Lyra said weakly from the medical bed where she was recovering. I can feel our people healing. Across the stars? Prince Vex knelt beside his sister's bed with tears streaming down his face. The lights under his skin were already growing brighter as the genetic restoration took effect. I'm sorry, Lyra. I nearly destroyed everything because I was too afraid to trust you. We both learned something, she replied. I learned that sometimes difficult choices must be made for the greater good. And you learn that there's usually more than one way to solve a problem if you're willing to ask for help. Jake watched. The royal siblings reconciled and felt a deep satisfaction. The galaxy was safe from tyranny and an entire species had been saved from extinction. But more than that, 2 peoples had learned to work together despite their differences. As he prepared to return to his simple life as an exploration, Captain Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. Princess Lyra had insisted on walking him to his ship despite the doctor's protests. Thank you, she said quietly, for showing us that the guardian spirit isn't just a human trait. It's something any species can choose to embrace. Jake smiled. Take care of yourself, Princess. The galaxy needs more rulers like you and fewer like your brother used to be. He's going to be a good emperor, Lyra said with confidence. This experience taught him that true strength comes from protecting others, not controlling them. As Jake's ship lifted off from the Altian homeworld, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. A routine patrol had become a desperate flight across the galaxy, and finally a mission to save an entire species. All because an alien princess had clung to him in desperation and he had chosen to help.